Renting your apartment out to the wrong tenant can cost you thousands. Let's talk about it. People think that buying real estate is their golden ticket to wealth. And in some cases, it really can be, depending on you. But one of the things that you have to really look at and think about is who you're gonna rent your apartment to. Now, I've said in the past, all the costs involved in purchasing a rental property. If you're not living in it, you probably have to put down like 20%. And then you got your closing costs and your surveys and this and that and that and this. And then you still got to fix it up and get it ready for the tenant if it's not already ready. So, once you get all that done right, all your decorating and you done paid out whatever you done paid out to buy the property, now it's time to get a tenant, right? You can rent a garage out. And I don't mean to be funny about this, but you can literally rent a garage out and someone will rent it. That's a true fact. Someone will rent that garage out for their home. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about renting out a decent apartment to a decent person. What do I mean by a tenant can cost you thousands of dollars? If you got a good tenant and they, for whatever reason, lose their job and they're unable to pay rent, well, they're not going to voluntarily move out of your place because where are they going to go, right? So they're going to stretch that out to figure it out. What's their next move? So you'll probably lose maybe about 1 to 2 or more rents until they figure it out. Now, most landlords don't want to go to court. They don't want to evict anybody. So, they're going to try to work with that tenant to figure out a solution. And I've been doing real estate for over 30 years, and I can tell you from experience, unless it's around income tax time, if a tenant falls behind 2 mortgage payments, chances are they won't be able to catch it up. That's a fact. Now, so what happens then, when the tenant can't catch up? Well, now it gets a little dicey for the landlord because number one, he don't have any income coming in. So let's say if it's a house, that's 100% of that landlord's income. If it's a 2-flat, that's 50%. If it's a 4-unit, then that's a quarter, right? So as you see, the more units you have, the less risk that you have in a sense. And we'll get into that in a little bit. So let's just say for the sake of saying it's a house. So now if that person, for whatever reason, stop paying, now you're looking at 100% of your income you're not receiving. And most landlords have mortgages unless they, were smart to buy, properties, fix them up for a little nothing, and then now they just rent them out. But for the most part, in this day and time, most people have a mortgage. So now, whether that tenant pays or not, you still got a mortgage. So you still got your mortgage, you still got your insurance, you still got the water, you still got all the goodies that go along with running a house, as well as the upkeep. So now, who's going to pay that? Hopefully, you set aside a few dollars for emergency so it can kind of tide you over. But you remember the COVID when people didn't have to pay. You had a lot of landlords, they lost their shirts, they lost their property, they just really destroyed them. And I felt that was unfair from the government to put it all on a landlord. Now, most landlords are ma and pa operations. Now, you do have corporations moving into the housing market, but they can withstand a storm better than a ma and pa, because most of the time a ma and pa is probably working a full-time job or a retiree, meaning they're no better than the person they're renting to. So where am I going with this? When you put the wrong Joe in now, this is a totally different ball game, because now it's just game. They move in with the first month's rent or security deposit, and then all of a sudden they just stop paying. And now you screwed, because you don't have any money coming in and they don't have any intentions moving out. They want you to put them in the court system, and that can take anywhere from 2 months to 6 months. In some cases, a year, depending on how bagged up the court system is. So what happens when you get a tenant like that? Well, now you're going to be struggling, if you're a ma and pa, to just try to hold on to a property that you put a lot of money into just to get it. Now you're fighting to keep it. I've seen cases, and it happened to me as well, when tenants move out for whatever reason, even though they know they owe you, they mad at you for whatever reason, and then they destroy your apartment. Now, I've seen tenants literally tear all the windows out in an apartment. I've seen people bust toilets up. I've seen people kick in all the doors, the interior doors. I've seen it all. And then I've been through a lot with tenants that destroyed my places. So it's like, now you have to figure out, first of all, you got to wait till you get them out of there. Some landlords that try to give them a couple of $1,000s to get them to move. And then you have others that try to go through the court system to try to get them out. But either way, it's costing money. And then after all of that, you got to deal with the court costs, and that's not cheap. You have to pay all these fees just to put a person in court, and then if you're smart, you get an attorney, but attorneys aren't cheap. So now you got to get an attorney, and then it's going to be dragged out, and if they decide they want to go to trial, that can drag on even longer. Now, what's the downside to a tenant that does all this? Well, if they lose, right, now you got eviction on your record. And if you got eviction on your record, it's really hard for that tenant to get another apartment, because most landlords is going to look at it as a red flag to them. If you got eviction, I may not want to go through trying to rent to you because I might have a problem. So that's the downside to a tenant playing those type of games. But at the end of the day, you have to really do your due diligence as a landlord to really screen these people. It used to be a time where it was all about the money. If you got the money, come on in, move on in. But now, you just can't play that game. Some people, I've even experienced it, people have their furniture and stuff waiting outside the apartment. They ready to give me the money so they can move right in. And what happens is, now they're your problem. And I'm not saying all tenants are bad, because, you got a lot of good tenants, and I got one. So all tenants aren't bad, but you have to really do your due diligence these days, because now tenants can buy fake social security numbers, fake company names, and fake check stubs, and fake this and fake that. So you have to really do your due diligence. And what I decided to do when I was in the business is I would literally go out to see where the person say they live. I want to see if the utilities are in this person's name, that where they live at. I want to go to their job that they say they work at. I had this one guy say he was a barber. So I told him, I said, I'm going to just pop up to see you cutting hair. And he fessed up. He said, hey, I told my girlfriend, this guy going to really come to the barber shop and I'm not going to be there. So he fessed up and I appreciated that. But did he get the place? No, he did not. But I appreciated his honesty. But again, you have so many ways that people can cost you a lot of money as a landlord, and you ask yourself at the end of the day, if you're a small guy, is it really worth it? Because you can really lose your shirt and possibly lose your place, and a fix up an apartment can cost you anywhere, depending on how bad a condition the previous tenant left it, anywhere from $1,000 to $2,000, and it takes time to recoup that money back, along with all the other expenses you have. And let's say if you got like a 2-flat or 4-unit and you heat it, well, now you gotta, whether tenants pay you or not, you still got to keep that water going. You got to keep the heat going. Whatever you're paying for, you agreed to pay for, you still got to pay for it, whether that tenant is paying you or not. So keep that in mind as well. I generally, when I was doing real estate rent out, I like to put everything in the tenant's name, because this way, if for whatever reason they stop paying, it's not on me, it's on them. I had one tenant took me to what court was that? Violation court, and I think it was a violation court, and he said that I wasn't heating his place, and I had to show proof that he was responsible for heating his own place. So I dodged the bullet there, but if you're paying for the water, the heat, and the electric and all that, whether that tenant pay you or not, you still got to pay it. And I'm going to tell you another thing that you may really want to do if you can. If you can keep the water without being on a meter, would be the way to go. Because a tenant, if they're mad at you and that water is on a meter, they can just let that water run day and night, and that meter is just spinning. So you can easily accumulate thousands of dollars just off that meter spinning around. So what I did was I always just kept the meter. I kept my water off a meter, and then this way, yeah, I'm gonna pay a little bit more. But, I always thought that this way the tenant can't stick it to me if they get mad at me. I've seen cases where tenants, they be so mad at the landlord that they got to move. They'll pour cement down the toilet or pour cement in the kitchen drains. And can you imagine how expensive that is to figure that out? I mean, you're talking thousands of dollars to how do you break open concrete? So people can be really vicious when it's time for them to move, even though it's not your fault, but they gonna take it out on you regardless. I had a young tenant. He just did not understand about how to rent an apartment out. And, I didn't do it, but he had a lot of people speak up on his behalf, and I did it. And it didn't work out. And what he did was he stopped up all his sinks and tub and everything, and he just let the water run. Thank goodness I had a tenant on the first floor below him. Well, it would have been a disaster for me because that water would have destroyed the ceilings, the floors. You talking thousands of dollars. You know, I had a friend, he had a house, and the tenant did that to him, and it was like a bomb went off, just destroyed that house, and he never recouped from it. So these are the things that you have to look out for when you're renting your apartment. You want to make sure you do your due diligence and not just look at the money. You know, you want to really follow up on all the information they give you, the references, where they say they live, the job. All these things matter, because once you get a tenant into your place, they're your problem now. And the judge is going to tell you that. He's going to say, well, why did you rent to them? They don't want to see it. They don't want to hear it. First thing they're going to say is, why did you rent to them? So that's all I have for you. Again, this is Kay, back at it with a new video. See you in my next one. Take care, guys.